Welcome to Socializing Security, where every week we have a discussion about security, compliance, and beyond.
Our goal is to learn and grow by socializing each week's topic with each other, our guests, and with you.
A quick compliance note, this podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal or regulatory advice.
We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you'll learn along with us. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Socializing Security. Milo, how are you doing?
Doing really well. Looking forward to having a guest on the show. It's been a little bit, so looking forward to having someone join us today.
Yeah, we've slacked off a little bit on that, but we've got a few getting lined up here, so this hopefully be the first of several coming in. Yeah, so today we're going to talk to Craig Taylor, who has a long history in cybersecurity, and as a part of that, he has brought a lot of psychology background into what he's doing, and today running a cybersecurity education approach to things, helping people with training and learning how to do cybersecurity better.
Yeah, he has a very impressive background in the cybersecurity space with a lot of roles in information and risk management before co-founding CyberHoot, his current gig, where he's been for almost 13 years. And as you mentioned, they do a lot of cybersecurity training and expertise to help bring up and train the rest of us.
Yeah. As we've definitely talked training before, but it is kind of a foundational element to things, especially once we start bringing other people that aren't cybersecurity specialists kind of into the fold and really playing into that. It's everybody's game. So we've got to get everybody educated to a certain level. And I know when we talked to Craig before, his approach is very thoughtful. It's very detail oriented, very, very based on research and facts. And like I mentioned, the psychology background obviously plays a part in that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking over CyberHoot, they do a wide array of things. So they do training and they do phishing simulations and making sure that the team members are going kind of beyond kind of the basic bare minimum security training that I think we've probably all seen at some point or another. And so it sounds like their team really goes beyond to try to make sure that the people that they're training are actually interacting with the content. So it's not just a quick quiz, but they're actually understanding how they're supposed to be spotting certain attempts and learning as they go.
Yeah, very much an approach of let's give them the positive aspects of learning this rather than, slapping them when they don't get it right. But I'm sure we'll get into that quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about this training aspect of things, but I think Milo and I both think it's important enough to touch on multiple times. I think we may actually even have more kind of coming in after this one as well. So lots of different perspectives on things. So Milo, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and bring Craig on.
Sounds great.
And we're back with Craig. Craig, thanks for joining us. Why don't you give everybody just kind of a quick minute or two introduction to who you are and allow them to kind of hear your voice and stuff.
Sounds good, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Milo. Great to be here. I've been doing cybersecurity for 30 years. I have a degree in psychology. What that means is I started so long ago, there wasn't a World Wide Web when I got into this stuff. So I'm as old as dirt. And there were no cybersecurity degrees then. I did get my CISSP in 2001. So I'm in the first 25,000 of those, and there's now 3 million in the world. But what I think is going to be interesting for your listeners today is that my psychology degree and my educational focus over those 25 years combined with cybersecurity have produced something really, truly unique and necessary and really needed by the cybersecurity industry as a whole around cyber literacy, cyber awareness training, how not to be taken advantage of, and how to build programs that work for your companies of people listening to this.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the reason we were excited to chat with you is that approach with a psychology mindset, thinking about what, how people remember things, why people remember things, the incentives that go into it, both, carrot and stick, if you will, in order to get people to truly not just be able to pass a test at the time of the training, but to truly internalize why their behaviors need to be a certain way. Maybe even if they don't consciously understand it. So let's maybe start with talk a little bit about what your background in psychology, how you bring that into cybersecurity, what that teaches or has taught you to what you've done with Cyberhoot and creating kind of a training program based on that psychology background.
Sure. So, my background is 30 years of doing cybersecurity. I've worked in Fortune 500 companies, big budgets, lots of people to run programs, and very familiar with what the industry as a whole has been doing and continues to do without really good outcomes, without real changed behaviors in the employees around me. To put a finer point on it, when you look at psychology and the background, 75 years of psychology and operant conditioning, Pavlov's dog, all of that, you realize pretty quickly that punishing behaviors has never been shown to extinguish those behaviors. It's a temporary measure at best. On the flip side, if you flip that coin over, rewarding good behaviors has been shown to change behaviors in the long run. And it has to do with a very the complicated simplification is this: outside control is punishment, inside understanding is rewards, right? It becomes an internal locus of control. The individuals going through programs that see, hey, I get rewarded for this and for this and for this, they do those behaviors over again. They continue to repeat them. But individuals who say, hey, I got punished for this, they think, I better not get punished. I better not get caught. I better not, have anybody see me doing this, right? It doesn't actually change and they don't internalize it. That's at a very oversimplified level, but Pavlov and the operant conditioning founders of psychology said rewarded behaviors are repeated, punished behaviors are never extinguished. And that's yet what cybersecurity has been doing for 25, 30 years. They've been sending and trying to figure out what's the biggest sticks we can give people for clicking on things, right? Sticks for clicks. And it doesn't work. And there's empirical research that proves that. There was I don't know if you want me to continue, but I can go into the Zurich study from 2020.
Yeah, definitely.
They actually found that fake email phishing tests where individuals are punished for failure, they're called out, they have to take remedial training of 30-minute videos, what have you. It actually led to more clicks rather than less clicks on phishing links in the long run of their study. There's some technical reasons for that. When you're sending out fake messages, you have to really dumb down the domain names of the emails you send out, which sends the wrong message to users that if this is supposed to be a Microsoft reset my password or my MFA email, all I need to know is that it didn't come from, it came from a really obviously wrong domain name like account resets or us. Because if you used Microsoft with a typo squatted domain name, the reality is Microsoft would sue you to take it down as a vendor of these solutions. So then flip back to your earlier question, how did we come about at Cyberhoot differently? We tried to do the fake email phishing test. We were struggling. It was a lot of work. And we were reading the literature says it doesn't really affect anybody, doesn't change any behaviors. And somehow a light bulb went on like, what's the most powerful behavior change that humans have ever discovered? It's the slot machine, right? Because it's an intermittent reward schedule where the next pull is going to get you that, coins to fall out. But when you take that into a literacy or cybersecurity program, you can't really create a slot machine. But what you can do is you can reward people for engagement, for good behaviors, for picking and looking at the sending domain is typo squatted here. We got a 0 for an O in Microsoft, and we have open book tests, but we're actually rewarding you for picking that in the moment. You go through this exercise, we call it Hootfish. It's our patented non-deception, browser-based phishing simulation. That's what we got patented with 19 claims about 2 weeks ago. Very exciting times for us. But it basically, thank you. It's pretty cool. And it's a labor of love for 3 years, paid for it out of my own pocket. But the reality is, when you can reward the proper choices very closely in time, the learning quotient goes up. People learn more, they get a better understanding, they retain more. Many of these tools that are on the market, they do a day later, a week later, oh, you failed that phishing test. What phishing test? I don't even remember what I clicked on, right? People get lost in that. But also it doesn't really affect their behavior in the future because it's like my company sends these nasty emails. I just got to forward them to IT to report them. I don't really understand it. I send everything to IT, so it fails to effectively work. So that's really the psychology behind a positive reinforcement awareness training program. And then you can extend it into other modalities of learning. People learn by visual, watching a video. They learn by listening to the voice. They learn by reading on the screen the text message. That's another difference between Cyberhoot and our modalities of training. We train in the browser in an actual email presentation to the end user. So they're learning the rubric. There's 6 or 7 questions you learn in the form of an email. What everyone else does is measures what you know by sending this fake message to your inbox. If you fail it, the training happens after in a video that they watch on average for 10 seconds. There was a study last year presented at Black Hat. 10,000 users were studied at a healthcare provider in the United States, and they measured 3 control groups. Control group A was they got nothing at all at any time. How often did they click on future fake messages that were sent? They had a control group that got, interactive videos where they had to watch the video, and they had a control group of people who had failed the test and then received a video. So the video was presented up front or after the fact. In all cases, the ones that failed the test and were assigned a video, the average user watched the video for 10 seconds before they got distracted or they went and got coffee or anything. So there was almost no training, and it was borne out in the results. They found a 1.7% difference in click rates overall between the users that got nothing and the users got everything. It doesn't work. So something has to change in order for us to staunch the flow of breaches that we hear in the news every single day. That's the biggest evidence that what we're doing hasn't been working, right? If we were really good at this, we'd have a lot less breaches, I would think.
What do you then recommend? Because it is so common in compliance programs and training programs that if folks click and they fall for the phish or they fall for the simulation, that then they get retrained or they get assigned another training. What do you guys recommend instead of that?
Well, do the training up front. I'm not saying we should never run an attack. I call it the difference between hoot phish, which is the positive reinforcement non-deception training. That's like going into a classroom on genetics and getting coursework and the teacher teaching to you, right? Here's what you need to know. And by the way, this might be on the final exam. Down the road, you can run the attack phish as a final exam for your students, for your employees to say, hey, we've been giving you the material to teach you how to phish so you can apply it to your personal lives, your work lives. But put it up front, the training up front, the positive reinforcement and the reward-driven approach to engaging your employees. Put that at the beginning, not the pass-fail test at the beginning. So I think you have to flip that around and do a lot of training in ways that people actually enjoy and participation rates go up. Because if you're clear with your employees that we're not deceiving you, we're not sending you these, here's your dress code changes in the latest HR update or the Christmas bonus that's really a phishing test or, some really dangerous, devious things that people do to get high click rates to show improvement over time. That really alienates your employees. It creates a negative culture where people are afraid to say things. Mistakes that are made are not reported right away. People are very afraid of being called out because there's a culture of sheer shame and fear and punishment. So to answer your question, Malou, you start with a more positive reinforcement, reward-driven, if you make a mistake, it's okay. We'll work with you to teach you how to not make it again. And then having exercises that are actually designed for high engagement that are not our hoot phish exercise. Once you understand the rubric of 6 or 7 questions that you need to ask for any email, you could do it in 30 seconds. And at that point, it becomes muscle memory. I had a really interesting example. Let me ask you, Brian or Milou, if this makes sense to you. We got feedback that someone got a hoot phish just the other day, and the feedback was, this is dumb. If I see one thing wrong in an email, why would I mark other things safe and other things not safe, right? And I said, he's got a point, this person, the feedback. And then I try to come up with an analogy, and here's what I came up with. Karate Kid, Daniel, and Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi says, wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. And Daniel did that for days on end, and he was frustrated by it. He was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. You're just making me polish your boat for no reason, or whatever he was doing, right? But the reality was he was doing the motion of defense. when someone attacks you, your instinct is going to be to wax on and wax off, to block it to the right, block it to the left. And that's what we're doing with Hootfish. We're building the muscle memory so that when you get that really appealing email, because AI is creating things that Malou really wants to click on and Brian really wants to click on because they've snarfed and consumed your social media profiles, and they send one after another that are of personal interest to you, that wax on, wax off reaction is like, well, let me just check the sender that this did come from, my favorite golf club, and they're offering me a 2-for-1 golf deal because I'm a golfer. It's on my social media profile that I know enough to just quickly look and go, oh my God, that's not X golf course. That's a completely made up domain, or it's even a close looking domain. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. And that you're touching on one of the things Milo and I do like to talk about frequently is privacy and what do you share publicly, because that does get sucked up and used against you in ways that you never would have thought possible. I do like this analogy with the muscle memory, and as a fan of Karate Kid most of my life, I really appreciate that analogy. And obviously that's a education skill set that we see used a lot within sports. So run that drill over and over and over and over again. Why do we keep running it? It's exactly the same each time. Well, because you're learning how to do it over and over again. And the more times you do it, the less you have to think about it and the more you just do it, which means you don't lag because of decision making. You don't, your body just knows how to do it and you can think ahead to the next step. So I guess as you've studied this space, and gotten into this education mode, clearly you look at a lot of research out there and understanding what works, what doesn't work. And there's been centuries of education, school type education that's going on that we can learn from. And I guess I'm curious what you've looked at from that perspective on things like, don't test before you give them the information. You give them the information, then you test. If there are other learnings in that space that you've taken into what you guys have done.
Yeah, the gamification and leaderboards was one of our pivotal moments of recent memory, right? Moving to a positive reward system was the first big decision point away from Attackfish to the Hootfish approach. But we still found that people are busy. Leaders in companies ignore the training because they're too smart. They don't need to know this stuff. And I won't say which professions are the worst offenders, but there's a lot of them out there that have a lot of knowledge. And so what we've seized upon there are other engagement levers you can pull that help people engage and participate whether they want to or not. Here's another analogy. I'll give you 2 more. I hate working out at the gym. I do not like to go pump iron. I'm not that kind of person, but I am very fit because I go play a lot. I play sports, hockey, mountain biking, golf, and I'm playing those sports, but I'm getting the same cardio workout as I would at the gym. And I'm not working out. So it's kind of hidden by the gamification of it, right? And so we thought about that. We started throwing in some gamification. We've got level up scenarios where you get a new avatar. We're thinking about building even custom avatars where you can have one that AI generates a series of progressions through your own business and your own URL. But today they're owl avatars from Cyberhoot. But people genuinely like that. They get certificates of completion. So that's number 1 hack, is to get gamification in there to make it more play-like, more fun. You notice our logo. Well, you don't see our logo, but our logo is laugh, learn, hoot up, right? It's not do your homework, right? It's something fun and entertaining. The second part of this that really had an interesting impact, and this is something I should study at some point from a psychology perspective, from a socialization perspective, is we introduced anonymous leaderboards to the platform. So you get credit, and we've always collected points for when you complete an assignment. If you get all the questions correct, you get maximum points. If you do it on time, you get the maximum points. Actually, if you do it late, you get if you hand in your assignment in school, you get 20% off, 10%, just less points, whatever. So we created these anonymous leaderboards. And the surprising outcome we found was that the highest employees in the company, the C-suite and the directors, and like the people who were ignoring their compliance before their assignments, they magically started to do it. And when you dig into it and pull that thread a little bit, you ask a few people, well, why'd you start doing it? Well, I was afraid someone would find out I was dead last in the company. I didn't get to be the CEO by being last at anything. So it spurs them into participating. The participation that we do is also short, like high intensity interval training. That's another gym reference. But we do the hoot fish exercise, which can be done in 30 seconds. The videos can be done in 3 to 5 minutes, including the quiz. So it's not an onerous task for people to start getting caught up and see their ranks go up. And it was anonymous. It wasn't like a public leaderboard that would create shame for anybody. It was just their own knowledge that they were dead last or near the bottom. So they started doing it. And then they realized, hey, it's not so bad. And oh my gosh, I'm more efficient and confident in my email. And I finally understand phishing. Oh my goodness, this was not half bad.
No, that's really cool. Because, have seen that in some other places, and you always wonder, like, sometimes it's a competition to figure out who's who on the anonymous board based on other behaviors, timing, things like that. So I would think it continues to engage even from that perspective is, the mystery of it sometimes is enough to get people to engage on that.
I get feedback sometimes that people are talking about cybersecurity in our company now. I'm like, what changed when you adopted cyber? Well, they're talking about it around the water cooler. Some of it is like, are you ahead of me in this side? I'm at 5. I'm 5th in the company. Are you above me or below me? We also have a non-anonymous leaderboard. You can invite friends in your company to participate together so you can see each other. So you can actually have like 5 people on rowing machines doing their row and compete, but you can have them doing their assignments and competing. We actually have people who plane. I've done the exact same number of assignments as my colleague here. They're ahead of me, but why? And we have to explain, well, you were late on an assignment, so you got fewer points or whatever. But it's good to see that, and we encourage them to participate in those ways. Because when you step back from the industry as a whole, what you find is there's a big problem with apathy. People are burnt out from punishment. It's like they've shocked the dog collar, shock collar analogy and the treat. A dog that's been shocked too many times stops caring and participating. They actually leave, like they want to hide from the owner. But the dog that gets treats, they bring the leash to the owner saying, let's go, I want some treats. Can we go to the dog park? Can we do some more training, please? And we see that same thing borne out in the companies that we train.
I think that like team mindset, and especially the gamification, obviously, I think that's pretty well known in the training space that that's definitely the right direction. But I love the concept of really making security and training like a team sport, because obviously we know that, we're only as good as our weakest link when it comes to security. So I like the idea of making even the training program seem like a team sport that the entire company is a part of. And that can be a little bit competitive and, have this kind of like shared camaraderie, I think is really smart because, again, I think it goes to this culture of building a culture of, secure behavior within your company and also, reiterating security as a team sport. And we have to work together to be able to, make sure that we're staying secure. So I really like that concept of what you guys are doing with that because I think it's a very clever way to kind of reinforce that cultural piece.
We're introducing a new feature this week or next that allows you to create multiple tenants, even though you're one company. You might have different, like take a school district. Schools love us because we mirror the classroom, right? We teach and then we test. And it's positive reinforcement to spur lifelong learning. It's all the things schools love us. So, but a school district has 4 or 5 different schools. You got the primary school, the secondary school, the high school, the, whatever the arts program is, or there's a, for industry. We are going to allow them to create individual tenants within each school district. So you could have a school district with 5 schools all separate from one another, and their metrics roll up to the school, not the district. Well, they do roll up to the district as well, but the schools can then have like a public competition for the level of compliance and the number of assignments completed and the points the school's getting, so that you can, maybe the superintendent can call out and say, hey, pizza day for all the teachers and administrators and coaches that are in this school because they've had the highest compliance this quarter, or just a random drawing for anybody above a certain percent. If everybody gets to 80 or 85% compliance, they're entered into the drawing. The point is recognition, and that friendly competition you brought up, Milou, is what we're seeking to foster throughout the platform.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic because it does create that more lifelong learning. And like I said, it makes it more engaging. Like people want to participate because it is a group activity. And I'm not always one when a group activity comes up. I'm one of the people that groans and says, "Oh, do we really have to do a group activity?" But in the end, they almost always end up working out well because that you get a level of camaraderie in the learning. And so, like for my day job, as AI has become more and more important in the corporate world, we've done a few different AI group competitions where there's a bunch of us in the office at the same time. They're like, okay, we're going to break out into these groups. These are your randomly selected groups, and I'm like, oh, geez, and I gotta sit and work on something that doesn't have to do with my day job and use brain cycles and stuff for that. And you get through it, and you're like, wait a second, I see how I can apply this to this problem I'm having, and I know this person's having this problem, and if I incorporate this in there, maybe I can help solve their and the connections get made because your fingers are deep in it.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear that you're using those types of concepts like that.
I agree. And there's another benefit I would have imagined from your exercise, Brian, is that some of your colleagues might not have really known how security focused you are. And when they get a really particularly difficult problem or like an email or something that is just not quite right, but they can't put their finger on it, they can reach out to Brian and say, "Hey, Brian, can you take a look at this? Because I'm
Yep.
just not sure." And that's what you want. You want a culture that supports each other across a company, which is the exact opposite of what I often see, particularly in enterprises where they have a 3 strikes rule. You click on the third phishing email, you're fired. You're out of there. It's a very negative, very punishment focused. The stakes are so high, we can't afford anyone to click on anything, so we have to punish you by firing you. And it has the exact opposite experience and outcome that those enterprises are looking for. They want someone to call Brian and say, "Brian, I feel a little stupid here, but I can't figure this one out. Could you help me? Malou, I know you're really smart in these things. Could you help me out here?" That doesn't happen because it's a fear culture. You want an
Yeah.
open, rewarding culture that is rowing together in the same direction.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced that. People are like, oh, we start to meet people. It's a large marketing org, so we end up meeting people that we don't normally work with, and we realize, wait a second, I want to put it in taking advantage of people's type terms, but we could work together on a given problem that I happen to have or you happen to have, and at the same time, my team is constantly like, okay, this is a pretty good email. Did you guys get one like this? It kind of smells fishy, but it's not hitting all the triggers necessarily. What do you, oh yeah, I marked that as spam. And another person's like, I opened it, but I didn't click on anything. And we kind of workshop it ourselves
Yeah,
amongst our trusted group. Again, it's
see,
that trusted
perfect.
group
This is
to
great.
discuss it. So yeah, those learnings far beyond cybersecurity awareness.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, I'd like to work there. I mean, this is truly the truth of the matter is you can go to Reddit and you can see a litany of posts about, is it fair for my company to fire me for clicking on this? My
Yeah,
company sent a Christmas bonus email, which was a phishing email, and 5 people felt like quitting. Like it's a mile long and so many miles wide. Those are just not places I would want to work, period. Even though I know enough to be careful on those things, I've taught this for so many years. I just wouldn't want to be
definitely.
in an environment where everybody's afraid to make a mistake.
Awesome. Well, Craig, I think our time is coming to an end, but I would love to just ask you our one question that we like to ask all of our guests is a couple of years ago now, I had a CEO or CTO rather tell me that he felt like the fight for privacy was dead and that now it's the fight for security. I would love to just get your feedback on that. Do you still think that there's a fight for privacy or kind of put your spin on it?
Well, I think we talked about this, a bunch of security professionals in a peer group recently, and we said basically all of our data is out there. All the NPD breach and everything else around it, all of our social security numbers and our addresses and our financials, the data's out there. We're not going to get that back. But that's not the only privacy arguments that we want to take. When you listen to podcasts, I don't know, can I mention other podcasts like the Darknet Diaries? They talk about the
Absolutely.
guy's very focused on privacy. And he's like, you got to fight for the things that you divulge to your Google Chrome and into Google, who looks at every button and every letter typed in the search bars is sent to them. And accumulated. And yeah, the government today is respecting, that invasion of privacy by not going and, mining it for bad citizens, or maybe they are, but you need to use like the Brave browser and better privacy measures to protect yourself from a future government or a future political establishment that might not be. So I think there's still room for improvement on all of our fronts to protect our privacy in a point where if things were to get worse or change, we wouldn't be put at a disadvantage, right? And that extends to things like genetics, right? You go to 29andMe or whatever it
23
was,
me.
23andMe, and you put your genetics out there to see what you have, not what is your proclivity for prostate cancer or this kind of thing or that kind of thing. It's all really interesting, right? But could it be used to withhold treatment or to make other decisions for you in the future, or to charge you more money because you have a family history of prostate cancer or any of these other things? You have to think about these things from every angle. So the answer is yes, we need to keep fighting the privacy battle and understand it. I actually did a vibe coding website that looks at privacy policies and captures them at a fixed point in time, and it rates them on 5 or 6 metrics. Just with another AI prompt, it says, okay, this vendor's privacy policy says they will consume the data you share with them in their LLM for training and improvement purposes. That's a big X. No, thank you. I'll use a different vendor, right? So there's that. That's another thing. But then security, to answer your question about security, I think we also have to do a much better job on security, because we are going to find that AI can just put so many more attacks out there. We're looking at a couple of years now where vendors have to play catch up with the frontier models at patching the 0 days they all have within them. There's only 50 vendors in the Glasswing Coalition using Mythos to find these things, and the rest are left to use inferior tools, right? And the proof is in what's happened, right? Go to Google and look at how many patches were in Chrome last month. It was 600 plus. Go to Microsoft and look at their patch notices. There was 600 or 700 patches from Microsoft because they scanned with these tools their own infrastructure. But there's 50 million other companies doing software development out there that don't have it. So security is going to be hit hard soon. I would say you should reduce your attack surface, get rid of as many things that are out there, patch immediately, turn on automatic patching. Don't wait a day, because AI can figure out, reverse engineer a patch to its 0 day in the same day. We're seeing that. The other thing is get rid of your data, folks. Take as much data off your internal network as possible. I had a forensic investigation of a law firm earlier this year. They had 25 years of files on their internal network, all stolen. They had to go find 25 years. They had no reason for 25 years, maybe 5 years, 7 years. And the rest could have been archived onto a worm drive or a USB drive, stayed in storage in a thing. Get rid of the data. Put a honeypot in your network so you know when you're breached, because it's going to happen at some point. And let that trigger so you're not sitting, weeks later finding out, but the same day. These things on the security front, it's a whole nother podcast. I'm sorry, Malou, that's probably a thing, but these things need to be done on the security side. So yeah, privacy still matters. You still got to do a sign up for on the privacy front. One of my favorite things, and I'll throw another vendor out there, Delete Me or similar services. They can pull as much of your private data off the internet and delete it as possible, because they know how to move the levers, freeze your credit, that sort of thing. These are all measures that I think help answer the question of privacy versus security versus doing both. You need to do it all.
That's great. And definitely helps reinforce a lot of things that we've talked about on previous episodes. So definitely encourage people to go back into our back catalog and some of those, honestly, pretty basic security things. Craig, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. If people want to get a hold of you and or Cyberhoop, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Go to our website, cyberhoop.com. We give our training away free for individuals. So go to cyberhoop.com/individuals with an S. You can register there and you can get free Cyberhoop training, free Hootfish for life. We're not going to charge anything for that. But if you like it, tell your boss to bring it into your company, right? We'll give you 20% off if anybody signs up and says, the Socializing Security podcast where I heard about Cyberhoop. For the first year, we'll give you 20% off the entire year for all your staff. It's a free 30-day trial as well. Or you can email sales@cyberhoot.com if you want to reach out to us that way.
Yeah, that's an awesome service you're providing to the industry. So definitely appreciate that that free individual training, because I might just have to take that myself and maybe share it with a few family members that could maybe use a little bit more of that. So really appreciate that. Thank you, Craig. It's been great chatting with you, and I hope we'll get a chance to chat again.
Thanks,
My pleasure.
Craig.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Malou.
And that was Craig. Really enjoyed that conversation. I'm just kind of getting to the basics in a lot of places. We really tried to scratch the basics of cybersecurity topic at the end there, but just the basics of how people learn and understand is super important in this space, in my opinion. What did you pull out of there, Milo?
Yeah, I think it was refreshing to just hear somebody kind of doing, I want to say, just a different approach to training. I feel like there's just a very standardized way to do trainings in our space. And it's nice to hear, again, some of the things like gamification. I feel like a lot of providers are doing that. But I love the concept of kind of creating this shared leaderboard and making it feel more like a team sport, and kind of creating a little bit of friendly competition across a company. I think could be a really fun way to just kind of create a different conversation around cybersecurity training to generate potentially a little bit of excitement as opposed to resentment. And I think, again, this focus on making sure that individuals are trained before they're punished, before they're tested with cyber phishing attempts, I think is also just a really great way to go about it. Because as you could hear from him, it doesn't sound like he agrees when companies terminate individuals for failing these types of things necessarily. So it was just a very refreshing approach to hearing somebody who's spent his whole life's work really on building out trainings and making sure that they're mindful of, how can you capture that, and making sure that people are learning from it and they're not necessarily resenting it wholly.
Yeah. Yeah, we all groan when we get that email that says, hey, you've got compliance training coming up, and you're gonna have to watch those videos. Which to me, he mentioned that they do use a mix of different things, videos being one of them, and the one that we're probably almost used to having to take. But obviously those are easy to walk away from. They're easy to multitask away from. The testing you have to do at the end can only force you to engage so much. And I like the focus that he talked about with the modality of the training itself. Let's put you in as close to the mindset that you'll be in the moment where you're going to get this email and you're going to have to make a decision on it. So rather than us having a video that tears apart this email and says, okay, look at this and see how this is different and see how this is different. Instead, what they're doing is they're simulating you logging into Outlook, logging into Gmail, whatever your company's using, and having you actually look through the emails and, which ones are the ones that you probably shouldn't click on, which are the links that you want to question, rather than relying on people to have to either watch a video or identify it in the wild in their own email box. Something's in here. It's a bit of an escape room, maybe, that helps you to know you're in the mindset of I'm having to solve this problem. I know this problem exists. I need to figure it out, and using that to kind of build that muscle memory is a great approach, in my opinion. I haven't seen that myself, so I may try to get my company to try it, because I kind of want to try it for myself, what Craig was talking about.
Yeah, I also love that they offer individual training for free. I think that's awesome to get people excited about it. And also, I think that's a really great perk for folks to be able to try it, especially maybe people that are trying to get into this space and want to learn a little bit more. I think is a great way to do that. So yeah, I thought Craig was awesome. I'm very grateful for his time. So thank you, Craig. And again,
Yes.
The best way to reach him is through Cyberhoot.
Yep, and we'll put links in the show notes for all of you to be able to get to that very easily, because we appreciate Craig's time. And when we have people on, especially when they're founders of businesses, it's always nice to give them a little bit of love back. So really appreciate, Craig, your time. Really appreciate all of you listening and watching, your time. There's a lot of stuff out there, so we appreciate your time. We appreciate your engagement. Hit us up, info@socializingsecurity.com, or on LinkedIn if you have any feedback for us on any episodes or any topics you'd love us to talk about. We'd love to hear it. So with that, I think we will let everybody go, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Socializing Security. We hope you learned a thing or two with us.
If you'd like to continue socializing with us on this topic or have feedback, we'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn or social media. Just search for Socializing Security. Or you can email us at info@socializingsecurity.com.
Until next time, stay social and stay secure.